seconds. Let's get this going up online too. For our folks on our YouTube channel. Hopefully I don't crash everything right now. Give me a couple seconds. All right, got that going. All right. Ready to go, Lisa?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Jason Ampel, aka Dr. A, and we have Lisa Raymer here. Miss Lisa Raymer is our certification specialist here. So quick about us, if you are new to the Learning Liaisons, if this is your first session you're coming to because you saw free, and everybody likes free. I'm an educator too. We all like free. You're here and you're in the process, maybe wanting to be a teacher, or you just started in your first, second year, and maybe you're not getting the answers you need from your school district or the DOE. You know, we know that happens, unfortunately, sometimes. You said, let's go hear from the experts. So here at the Learning Liaisons, we focus on putting you on the right track, helping you on your journey towards certification. That's why we have rock star individuals like Lisa here. And then we also provide the preparation to pass the exams that are a requirement as well. So I'm just like you, I'm an educator myself. I've taught, just a quick rundown, just so you know that I'm not a crazy person up here just spewing nonsense. So I'm an educator just like you, 10 years in the classroom, 5 years middle school, 5 years high school. Yes, I taught middle school, so big shout out to those middle school teachers. I taught at the University of Central Florida for 10 years in the College of Education. So I taught all the undergrad core classes, all that content that goes into your professional ed test that you have to take. I taught graduate level and a couple of doc classes as well. So I am what you call a professional educator. So we started doing this, helping teachers with this version of the Learning Liaisons, helping with certification and the journey towards passing their exams since 2013, 2014. So we've helped over 7,000 teachers to this point along their journey of certification. And we're happy and honored that you join us here today, because we know there's a lot of confusion when it comes to certification. A lot of stress, a lot of people question what the heck they're doing and they need help, and we've got your back. So that's a little bit about me. And then I'll let Lisa talk a little bit, introduce herself. And I've got some of the stuff on here about Lisa. So I'll let you introduce yourself, Lisa. Go ahead.
All right, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lisa Raymer. Just to give you guys a little background, I actually am considered a career changer myself. I wasn't always in education. I used to be in oil and gas, and then I made the move to certification and into education. And so I know how coming into this process, it can be a little confusing, not always so clear. And so that's definitely the goal of today, is to help you navigate and figure out what you need to do. I spent the past 4 years as a program director for a state-approved EPI called Florida Teachers of Tomorrow. So I'm very familiar with the state certification process. I've worked with thousands of teachers, just talking about how to meet their requirements, how to get certified, answering their questions, anything and everything under the sun. I've done that. And I actually also work currently as a certification specialist. So I do have a lot of great knowledge and insight that hopefully I can share with you guys to help you navigate and get your goals complete when it comes to certification.
Awesome, awesome. So before we begin, every time we do our free webinars or workshops, a couple of housekeeping items so we're all on the same page. A lot of people sign up for this, but we know things happen. So we always record our webinars. We don't charge for them. They're going to be on our YouTube channel, and I'm going to give you guys a chance to subscribe to that here in a second. So make sure you have your phone out ready to go. It's a real simple process, because we've got a couple of these, and we got some Q&A sessions that are on our YouTube channel also with Lisa, where teachers just fired away. Those are fun. Just questions back and forth, asking Lisa anything about certification. So a lot of those things, your questions can get answered there. And we have a lot of free webinars for the different workshops and tests that we provide for here at the Learning Liaisons. You can ask Lisa questions. What we're going to do here is pretty straightforward. It's going to be about 60, 75 minutes. She's going to take you through the journey from beginning to end. What you need to do, what not to do. We're going to budget some time in the end where you can ask your questions. So you might have an individual issue that you can't get answered, because good luck if you're going to call the DOE. No offense to the DOE. They're awesome. They got a lot of stuff to do, but there's long wait times, and sometimes school districts don't necessarily have the answers right off the top for you. So we're going to answer any questions you have. If we run out of time, you're going to have our email addresses at the end. Email us our questions. We're going to answer anything that you have because our job is to make sure you're successful, okay? So we're going to go through all that. So if Lisa's talking about something, let's say the statement of eligibility on some of these slides, and you think, oh, I have a question I don't want to forget, and it's off topic, you'll see if you're new to Zoom, I'm sure you're not if you're educators, but on the bottom of the screen, there's a Q&A bubble. So I always tell people, if you have a question that comes to mind, because I know when I go to trainings, I think of things off topic and I write them down. So if you don't want to write them down, throw them in the Q&A bubble and we'll cycle through those at the end. But if it's on topic of what's on the screen, go ahead, shoot. You could use the microphone. I gave you guys microphone rights, or you could put it in the chat box as well. And Lisa will answer those on the fly if it's on topic. So quick recap, off topic, use the Q&A, we'll knock them out at the end. On topic, use the chat on the microphone. If that makes sense and sounds easy, give me a yes in the chat box, and then we'll get rolling. So if that makes sense, give me a yes. I want to see a bunch of yeses in there. Awesome, awesome. That's your first quiz of the day. You passed. Very good. That's the easy part. All right, so this could be, I bolded that. The certification process, like Lisa mentioned before, we'll talk about it. It could be tricky. And I personally see, because I work with a lot of school districts that provide prep for their teachers and colleges. We're talking teachers here with the certification process. A lot of people have lost their jobs because they didn't finish the process and they didn't do things the right way. They didn't have the documents turned in. They didn't know what they were doing. They had nobody to ask, and they just missed a deadline. So we don't want that to happen. So we're going to make sure we have a good thing happen here today and answer all of your questions. The last but not least, like I said, make sure you have your phone out ready to go actually right now. And what I want you to do is I want you to open up to the camera. So I'll give you a second. Grab your phone. And obviously, if you're watching from your smartphone, you can't do this. But grab your phone, open up the camera. All right. And all I want you to do, I'm going to give you guys 60 seconds to do this. And I want you to put the word done in the chat box when you do this. Take the camera, point the camera at the QR code on the screen. You're not taking a picture. All you gotta do is point it at the QR code, and you're gonna see a little window pop up on the top that's gonna open up a page, and it's gonna straight to the YouTube channel. Go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we got a ton of free resources, certification videos with Lisa, things to help you along the way. So I'll give you 60 seconds to go ahead and do that. And obviously, if you're already a subscriber and you watch our videos, just put done in the box, in the chat box as well. So I'll give you guys 60 seconds to do that. Give me a done in the chat box when you finish that. All you got to do is, you're not taking a picture, just point the camera at the QR code, and it'll open up a window on your screen, and you're good. This way you'll get this recording, the other certification workshops we did with Lisa, the Q&A sessions, a lot of great stuff on there, and all of our certification videos. I'll give you guys another 30 seconds for that, and we're going to turn it over to Lisa. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And if you want to do the old school way, there's the URL. You can do it later on. All right, so let's get rolling here. You guys ready? Are you ready to learn everything you need to know about certification and not get caught in the trap like a lot of teachers do? All right, let's get hyped up. Bonus points. Who knows what show that is?
Workaholics. Sorry, I shouldn't have said it.
Oh my God, Lisa, you just gave it away. All right,
I did it. I got excited.
All right, so they're all yours, Lisa.
All right, so today we're going to go over kind of what we really want you to get out of the presentation. I think it's important not to focus on remembering everything I'm saying today, because there's going to be a lot of information we're going over, but just to remember the pieces that mean the most to you so you can move forward in your process. What you're going to learn about certification is it can be very individualized. So just because the teacher next to you or your friend had to go do one thing doesn't mean that you necessarily have to do that same thing. And there's a number of reasons why that may be. So I always just like to go over these goals, and I don't want you guys to think that you have to remember everything from today. I'm always here as a resource for y'all. And I say y'all a lot because I lived in Texas for 14 years and I can't stop for the life of me to say it. So you have to probably bear with me while I say y'all. So what we're going to talk about and how I like to break it up is as you go through the state certification process is the documentation that you're going to receive. So the first piece that you receive is called your Statement of Status of Eligibility. And then from there, you'll earn a temporary certificate, and then you'll go straight to your 5-year renewable professional certificate. And we'll talk about kind of how all of those work together and how long each of them last, how do you get one, how do you meet those requirements, and if there's anything in between that maybe I don't mention, that's when you get your opportunity to ask away. And I love it. It's like trivia night for me. So please don't hesitate to ask. So when we're talking about the goals of certification, it's always good to understand the overall process and what you're going to have to do, and we touch on that in a lot of different ways as we go through that presentation. But again, as I kind of mentioned before, it's knowing what your specific step is. If you're a career changer, or maybe you already graduated in education, or I meet a lot of people in just a lot of different situations. Do you have college teaching experience? Your route and how you go about getting certified might be it's going to be a little bit different. Now, it will be a little bit different. So what I want you to pick up is, where are you in this process, and what is it that you have to do next in order to get to that next step for certification? And then after that, I just say, remember that there was some lady on this webinar I talked to with the Learning Liaisons, and I'm going to go reach out to them and I'll ask them. So let's go ahead and get started. So animation. So let's talk about your official statement of status of eligibility. So when you go and you apply with the Department of Education, and we'll talk about that application process, what your statement of status of eligibility, or SOE for short, is a formal written response that you get from the Department of Education after you complete their application package with the state. Now, this will define if you are eligible or not eligible to teach in the specific area that you applied for. And we'll definitely talk about how do you even know if you're eligible or not eligible, because it's a very common question that I get. Now, one thing to keep in mind is it's going to outline every little thing that you're going to have to do in order to earn both your temporary and your professional certificate. Now, this document is valid for 3 years. And what you're going to see is it's not going to be the same 3-year period that you may have heard the temporary certificate is covered. So the temporary certificate we'll talk about is also good for 3 years. But those 3-year periods are going to differ a little bit, and I'll talk about why that is. Now, your SOE is not a temporary certificate. And so a lot of people, that becomes a very common misconception, because you get an eligible statement of eligibility. It says you can be hired and you're able to teach with that. So a lot of people think that that's your temporary certificate, but that's actually not the case. Your SOE is what defines what you have to do and when you have to meet those requirements. And your temporary certificate allows you to work as a teacher of record for a 3-year period while you're working to meet those requirements. So those are going to be the two little differences that you're going to see between the two documents. Now, we talked about a statement of status of eligibility. So how do I even go about getting one? Where do I even start? Now, if you do need links and you haven't started on that process to apply, you can email me afterwards, or email Dr. A, and we can send you those exact links on exactly where to go. I know sometimes going through the Department of Education's website can be a little tricky and confusing, but you go through some pages and you get to the very bottom of 2-3 pages in, and you can actually find the apply button. But I'm happy to navigate and help you with that process. Now, in order to get a statement of status of eligibility, you have to complete an application package with the Department of Education. Now, there are 3 key things that you're going to have to submit in order to be able to receive that statement of eligibility. First is you're going to have to create an account online with them in their system called Versa, and you're going to fill out the online application. And so when you fill out the online application, if the website's on a great running day and it's working perfect as we all want it to, that might take you about 30 minutes to finish up that application. If it's running a little bit slower, it might take you 45 minutes to an hour, just depending on how it's loading and how it's running. Now, keep in mind, you can pay $75 per subject area. So you can apply for more than one subject area should you want to. Just keep in mind that it is a $75 fee per subject area. So I always try to be mindful, because $75, hey, that's a lot of money for me. So I just want to be mindful when you're making those decisions that we're trying to make good decisions on what's going to get you eligible or what's going to get you certified, depending on either your job opportunity or your college credentials skills, or even your interests. So, and we're making mindful choices about that. Now, the last piece to complete your application package is you're going to submit your official college transcripts or credential evaluation. So if you did graduate from a university outside of the United States, you will have to get a credential evaluation. And if you do need resources on kind of figuring out where to go get that done, I can definitely send that to you. Do keep in mind when you're applying to be a teacher, the minimum requirement is you do have to have a bachelor's degree. And a lot of people think, well, I didn't get one in education. Is that still going to work? Absolutely. It doesn't matter what your major was in, as long as you have a 4-year degree from an accredited university or that credential evaluation that states that your degree is equivalent to a 4-year university in the US, you're going to be able to apply and work through that certification process.
So, quick question, Lisa. I don't know if people, whether they're watching live or maybe people watching this recording later on,
Yeah.
is this something, when I see about credential evaluation, is that an extra fee? Do people have to pay anything else for that? Or is that just something that the DOE does?
Oh, so that's a great question. It is a separate fee because you're utilizing a separate institution to review line by line your transcript. So that will be an additional fee. I always recommend getting 1 or 2 copies because when you submit your credential evaluation, they do need your original and they keep it. So when you do get that done, make sure to get at least an extra copy for yourself. Now, the next question, that's the most common question, is how do you know if you're going to be eligible for a certification area? So the 2 ways I list here are the easiest ways to directly figure out if someone's going to be eligible. And that's, do you have a bachelor's degree in the subject area you're applying for? So let's utilize the example, you're a biology major and now you want to go teach biology 6 through 12. Well, since your degree major is directly related into what you're trying to teach into that coverage area, you're going to be immediately eligible for that. Now, if you're someone that is a business major and now you're trying to teach elementary K through 6, well, your degrees doesn't line up with the content coverage area. So you're going to have to, you're going to be considered not eligible. So in the event that you apply for an area that your degree major would not make you immediately eligible for, that is what's when you're going to have to take and pass the subject area exam. So for majority of areas, if you take and pass the subject area exam, you will be able to be immediately eligible to teach in that subject area. Or if you're someone that's an out of field teacher, you're going to have to pass that subject area exam in order to be considered in field. And so it'd be in the area that you're teaching in. Now, there is a third way that I haven't added on here because these are the 2 direct ways, kind of a no-brainer, like, I know if I did this or not. The other way is if you do feel you have enough courses. So usually I find someone, maybe you minored in something, or maybe I get a lot of people, they started out in one major and they made the switch. I did that from pharmacy to business. So I have a lot of science classes in my college transcripts. You can actually submit for a transcript review. And usually the Department of Education is looking for 30 semester hours of certain content specific courses within your transcripts. And that can make you eligible. So if you are graduated in business, but you're like me and you made the switch from pharmacy to business and I wanted to be a science teacher, it's possible that I do have enough college courses to be able to qualify and be immediately eligible for that. But the only way to know is be able to submit your transcripts and do the application process. But that there is still a little bit of guesswork with that because it's not always cut and dry. It just really depends on what the Department of Education is looking for and if you're going to meet those requirements and you have enough credit semester hours. Are there any questions about applying or being eligible or your statement of status of eligibility? I always feel this is a good stopping point for people.
Yeah, and feel free, you can use the chat box. I gave everybody microphone rights. Feel free to turn on your microphone if it's easier for you. Do I just click answer live? I found a question in the Q&A. You can do that. Annabelle put one in the chat box. So for the chat box, for those people who rolled in a little bit late, welcome. On the chat box, click the little blue icon where you type in and make sure it says all panelists attendees. This way, everybody can see your question. because we got Annabelle send us a question. We can only see it. So if you want to switch that, make sure so we'll all work together and we'll help out each other by answering everyone's questions. So Annabelle asked in the chat box, is there a GPA requirement?
So that's a great question. So when you're applying for your major, they're usually, and you're immediately eligible, usually they can accept your major regardless of the GPA. But if you are applying and you're trying to find the semester hours, they're looking for a 2.5 GPA for your content. So you do keep that in mind when you're applying, that 2.5 GPA is just a good rule of thumb to guarantee that you would be able to be qualified and eligible to teach.
Awesome. And yeah, you could address Crystal's question.
Yeah.
Is there a limit to how many subject areas you can apply to?
So there is no limit. So if you wanted to do, I think there's 40 or 50 subject areas, you could totally do that. 44. Of course, you know the exact number, so you could do that. That might be a little bit of a deposit that you have to make. But you know, some people they do, and I understand they may apply for the area that they're interested in teaching, or they may apply for the area that they're going to be immediately eligible for. And there's a number of reasons why people decide what they're going to apply for. It really depends. Sometimes it's the job opportunity. Sometimes it's better to go with what you're interested in teaching or what's going to be high in demand. So another big question I get is, you know, what are the most important subjects or kind of high need areas that are needed for teaching right now? And so I see science, math, English is actually a very popular one. Well, not popular, high need area. And then exceptional student education also tends to be another high need area as well. And another thing I didn't mention is if you are anyone or anyone you know is a military member, a veteran or active, or they're a spouse, there are military waivers available to those individuals. So the military waiver is just a really, really amazing incentive and assistance program for our veterans and their spouses and their family members to be able to take advantage of waiving not only the application fee for when you apply, but also your exam fees. So the first time you take your exams, and we'll talk about the state exams, we touched on the subject area exam, but there are two other ones. You can get those fees waived with the military waiver. And the great part is if you're somebody that decides to apply for a number of subject areas, maybe it's 1, 2, or 3. You're doing elementary education, exceptional student education, and then you decide to throw in reading. That first time you take each of those, they will waive that fee for you. So it could be a tremendous help as you're going through that process financially. So if you are a member or a veteran, thank you for your service, and definitely reach out to us so we can send you that information so you can get set up on the military waivers. Awesome. And then, you know, the great part is we do have subject area exams. So I know Dr. A can talk about that, is what we provide in terms of subject area exam test prep. So I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, we can talk about that at the end. And Crystal has a question. I'm not sure if you answered that before. I think you might have, but do you have to request a transcript review, or does the DOE automatically do this when they determine your eligibility?
So the Department of Ed, and this is actually a very, very great question. So when you apply with the Department of Education, they're not going to say, oh, I'm going to look over your transcripts and, hey, you actually qualify for this, this, and this. When you apply, the Department of Education is only going to review your transcripts for the subject area in which you applied for, and that's it. So if you want them to do business, they'll evaluate all your stuff for business. If you want to do elementary ed, they're only going to evaluate for elementary ed. So that, I know that's one thing that people wish that they could see, just kind of get that feedback that maybe they could qualify for something else. But I think with the volume and everything that they have to manage as is, it would just be too much of a process. So that's kind of why they have to do the application part that way. All right, so let's talk about your temporary certificate. So what is it, and when do I get it? Do I get it now? Do I get it when I apply? Your temporary certificate is a 3-year non-renewable certificate. Now, this certificate is always going to start on July 1st, and it's always going to end on June 30th. So if you've ever been certified or have any kind of educator certificate, Regardless of if you get hired in September, October, November, that will get backdated to that July 1st deadline. So that's something people should always keep in mind when thinking of their time frame in which they have to complete stuff. It goes by the school year. So when we're doing reporting or when the districts are doing anything in terms of having to do it by the school year in that sense for reporting purposes starts July 1st and always ends on June 30th. So that's actually why you see those dates.
So,
Now your statement of eligibility.
so for example, if I get hired as a teacher after school start, let's say I get hired October 1st, right? I start teaching and I did this whole process. My deadline doesn't go to 3 years, October 1st. You're saying is it backdates and starts on July 1st and ends on June 30th.
Yep. So we can use this year as an example. If you get hired October, December, or even January of next year, since it's in the middle of the school year, you are going to get backdated to July 1st. So if we use this year as an example, if it's in 2020, then it would start July 1st of 2020 and go until June 30th of 2023. Gotcha. So that's how that's going to work.
I got a lot of people, a lot of teachers at school districts get confused with that. They think it starts when they actually got hired.
Yeah, and I understand that why that is, and it you do lose a little bit time, but I just always like to tell people just keep that in mind when you are getting hired, that will get backdated to that July 1st. So your 3-year period, it feels like it gets shortened up a little bit. So that also has to help you kind of manage your time wisely in terms of completing those requirements as well. Awesome. Now, when you, in order to even get a temporary certificate, you need to be eligible. So that's kind of why I spent a lot of time in the initial part of the presentation is talking about how to apply. How do you know if you're eligible? Because you cannot get a temporary certificate unless you are eligible. And so if you get a not eligible one, you would have to take and pass the subject area exam. Now, something to keep in mind now that I'm talking about this too, is if you ever see your statement of eligibility and say you're not eligible, some people may see that they have coursework or they can take the exam. One thing I want to emphasize is it says or on there. Some people think they have to do both or they need to do the classes regardless. Take the exam. So you can do either the courses or the exam, but always take the subject area exam. And the reason I emphasize doing that is because regardless of even if you did take those courses, you would have to take the subject area exam to earn your professional. And it's just a lot more cost effective and time efficient in order to do that. So just if you do get that not eligible, just think, okay, I got to take a subject area exam to get to that next step so I can get my temporary certificate.
Awesome. Okay.
Now, the actual issuance comes into play when you're hired and working for a school district as a teacher of record. So a lot of people think, oh, I got hired. They should issue me my certificate any day. There's still a little bit of process that has to happen in order for you to actually get issued that temporary certificate. So once you're hired, you actually complete your fingerprinting, your background check. And once the school district gets that in place and the school year begins, they can actually go ahead and create an issuance request so that your temporary certificate can be issued to you. Now, keep in mind with the temporary certificate, I know I said it's non-renewable. So if you do let that temporary certificate expire, you are going to have to do what they call the sit out year. And so you have to sit out for a year for teaching before you can reapply for a new temporary certificate. So just keeping that in mind when you're thinking of your deadlines, or sometimes people think they can be a little bit over. I always try to encourage people, try to meet that 3-year requirement because you don't want to have to do that sit out year. I know some people do it as a permanent sub or long-term sub, or they have to transition into a standard sub. We don't want to see that happen. So just keep in mind you do have that 1 year before you can get a new temporary certificate.
It always goes back to being proactive, getting things done as quick as possible. I always try to stress that to all the teachers that we work with. Don't wait till the last minute. We got a lot on our plate. Trust, we know what you're going through. We've been through it ourselves. We understand the pain, but it's always best just to be proactive, get it out of the way so you don't have to worry about this. All right.
Absolutely. All right. So do we have questions?
Oh. So any questions on the temporary certificate? Remember the difference between statement of eligibility and temporary certificate. So Lisa just went through that.
Oh, okay. So I did get a question from Allison, and she said, if I already took the subject area exam, I don't have to take the courses outlined in my SOE. So I'm going to answer this very carefully. So there's two areas on your statement of eligibility where it can outline courses. Your statement of eligibility, it talks about your how to be eligible for a temporary and how you need to be eligible, or how you can earn your professional certificate. And it can talk about having to take college courses in both. Now, when I was talking about passing your subject area exam, that is to meet the requirements for your temporary certificate to be eligible for that. Now, when your transcripts are getting evaluated and when you're trying to define whether you're eligible or not eligible, what the Department of Education is looking for is if you have mastery of the content knowledge in which you're trying to teach. And so that is either through college courses or passing that subject area exam. So you may see college courses listed on there. And then for your professional certificate, which we'll talk more about momentarily, the courses listed on there are pedagogy or how to teach courses. So classroom management, instructional assessment, instructional strategy, working with ESOL students, reading courses, a reading course. So there's two different areas. So if you do pass your subject area exam, you would be eligible for your temporary and not have to take the content or subject area specific courses listed for your temporary certificate. But you would still have to take the education specific courses or the pedagogy specific courses for your professional certificate.
So Roderick just put in a great question on there. How much time does it take? We're talking about the DOE here. How much time does it take to receive the temporary once you pass? I think you mean pass your subject area. Is that what you mean, Roderick? You said pass the statement of eligibility. So how long does it take to get that temporary once you pass the test?
So it's not automatically issued to you. So if you're already in a school district and working in a school district and you pass it, what you want to be sure, there's two things that can happen. So if you're someone that you're teaching at a field and you need to add that subject area, you're going to have to submit an application to add that subject area to your existing certificate, and they're going to have to process that application. So that can take anywhere from 30 to 60 days. If you're someone that's just starting out and you're immediately eligible, then you wouldn't get the temporary certificate issued to you until you're hired and working as a teacher of record. So you may honestly wait maybe anywhere from 1 or 2 months after. So I would go a 30, 60-day period from when you start school before you see your temporary certificate.
All right. So any other questions on the temporary certificate before we move on to the professional? Great question. You guys are asking some really, really important questions.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on to professional.
All right. So let's talk about the professional certificate. So your professional certificate, this is the end goal. This is what you're trying to work all those years, your initial years of teaching. Some people do this right away. Some people complete their requirements for a professional certificate in the 3-year period. So keep in mind your temporary certificate is good for 3 years. It's non-renewable. You'd have to do a sit-out year if you don't finish all your requirements for your professional. But your professional certificate is the full licensure for the teacher. It's a 5-year renewable certificate. So every 5 years, you're going to have to complete very specific requirements towards your professional development in order to be able to renew your certificate for another 5 years. And your school district, your professional development team, or your talent development team, they're going to be able to help you and work with you on how to meet those requirements. I wouldn't get too worried about that just yet. And even when you're on a temporary certificate, you're working towards some of those points and some of those requirements during that time frame.
Awesome. I'm gonna throw a curveball at you, Lisa. You ready?
Yeah.
What if you're a teacher from another state in the country and you have a certificate and you're like, I want to move to Florida, be near Disney World, and then you move. Is it automatically? Is there any situations where teachers might have to go through the testing process and do everything in Florida, even though they have a certificate from another state?
It depends on the state and the type of certificate. So if it's a full licensure, so some states call it a initial certificate, probationary certificate, temporary license or certificate. If you come from certain states and you come in with an initial certificate or a temporary probationary certificate, you're going to still come here and have requirements that you're going to need to meet. It's most likely state exams that you're still going to have to complete. If you do have that full licensure from another state, Florida does do reciprocity with other states. So then you would just be issued a Florida certificate. Now you do have to still apply with the Department of Education. You still have to submit your out-of-state certificate in order for them to honor that and be able to issue you a professional certificate in Florida. But just keep in mind that there are different types of certificates. So just depending on what type of certificate you have and what you're coming into Florida with, it may mean that you have some things to do, you have some exams to take, or it may mean that you're just going to be issued a certificate.
Awesome. Yeah, I just want to throw that out there because a lot of people ask me those questions. And Angela put a question on there. She's heard conflicting information regarding the required school-based hours or semester internship that is required for the professional certificate, or simply getting hired at the school meet this requirement.
Oh, okay. So I think I understand what you're asking. You can actually go to the next slide. I think I talk about, yep. Okay. So I'm going to start backwards on this slide based off of Angela's question. So when it comes to getting your professional certificate, there's 3 components that I summarize it just to be able to talk about this in a general sense. The easiest is you have education courses, state exams to take, and there's a teaching component where this goes to Angela's question, where you're either doing an internship or you're teaching for a year. So typically, if you're doing a program in a college of education, you're going to do the student internship at that time. So you do, I believe it's a semester internship. You work with the local school district over there near your college, and you'll do that semester of internship teaching at that time. Now, if you're a career changer, or I've met education majors where they, or almost education majors where they pretty much met almost all the requirements, but they didn't complete the student teaching, or their degree major didn't require it. So at that point, what happens is then you're gonna actually teach for a year on a temporary certificate. And that will fulfill that requirement for the teaching. So depending on whether you're doing an EPI program, alt-cert program, College of Ed, the way you can complete this teaching requirement is by student internship, you're teaching on your temporary certificate, or it may be conducting observations just based off of what your program that you're enrolled in to complete your professional certificate requirements. So that's where that option may vary.
Yeah, remember, from the college student perspective, but we're focusing the discussion primarily, I would say, and I'm sure Lisa, you can agree with this, towards the alternative certification, people coming into the field. But the whole other demographics is the college student in a traditional education school. They're going to go through their courses, but they're also going to pass all these exams and do all this stuff before they graduate. So that's what the internship part is. So that's a whole different demographic. They have a little different process.
Yeah, it's a little bit different of a process. It's just you do it while you do the student internship while you're in school and while you're finishing your degree, versus if you've already graduated, then you're doing the year of teaching, or you're doing the observations just based off of the program and the route you're going to choose. And we'll talk about routes momentarily. So the other parts that we can talk about, so in order to get your professional certificate, you're going to have to complete education courses. So if you're someone that is a business major, never taken a single education course in your life, this is at that point when you're going to have to take education courses. So if you've never taken anything, you're going to see a minimum of 15 semester hours covering 6 different bullet points. So 6 different courses that you're going to have to take. Now, this is where your transcript review comes very much into play, because I meet people that start out as education majors and they make the switch, or they almost graduate. Your education courses still definitely count. And they can count. And this is when the transcript review is very valuable for you, because they can reduce the amount of education courses that would appear on your statement of eligibility based on what you took in college. So that, I feel like, is really good news that they put that into consideration. So some people I can talk to, they may see that they only have one class to take, or I have people that have all 6 classes to take. It just really, that part will vary from person to person and statement of eligibility to statement of eligibility. Now, one thing I will say is it is possible to waive one of your education courses, not the ESOL or reading one, but the other 4 that are listed. It's possible to waive that with teaching experience. So I always find that that's good news for a lot of teachers when, they at least can take one thing off of their plate. Because I know this can be a lot as you're trying to teach and have family life to complete all these requirements as well.
Depending on your school district you're teaching at or will teach at, sometimes school districts offer these as trainings and courses. Sometimes they have their PDC programs, or you can do these online with universities or go to a physical class. So it just depends on the district and where you're at.
Yes. And so,
I turned the iPad.
Oh, no, you're fine. And so, yeah, so with the education courses, so if you weren't that College of Ed education, elementary education major that took it for your degree, this is at that point when you're going to have to take those college courses. And we'll talk about the different ways you can go about selecting that option to complete these. So it's a manageable thing to do for you. There's a bunch of different ways. There's actually 11 total routes in which someone can get certified. So there's a lot of different options in how to complete all of this. Now, the next part is the state exam. So we talked about the subject area exam. So as I mentioned earlier, if you are that biology major and you applied and you were immediately eligible for biology, you didn't have to take the subject area exam to get your temporary, but you have to take it now. So this is why I always encourage individuals to take that subject area exam if they're not eligible for something, just because you will have to take it for your professional certificate, or if you did want to add it on to your certificate, it is up to passing that subject area exam in order to get it added onto your certificate. Now, with the other exam that we're going to talk about is the general knowledge test. So I know a lot of people talk about this exam. It's a 4-part exam going over essay, reading, English, and mathematics. Luckily, the Learning Liaisons has you covered for all 4 subsections, and there's a lot of great content on their YouTube, but they do a bunch of free webinars and stuff. So there's a lot of great content that they have in addition to their on-demand courses to be able to help you work and navigate and pass this exam. The general knowledge test is considered the more challenging or the most challenging of the 3 exams. What's the pass rate for the first time?
According to the DOE, only 39% of teachers pass all 4 subtests on the first attempt. That's the DOE numbers. That's not our numbers. So, that there's a lot that goes into that. There's a big change with these exams in 2016. A lot of it has to do with, trying to memorize study guides, things along those lines. So it's a very serious exam. You need to pass it. It's primarily on content skills. We can talk about more at the end, but it's primarily 4th through 8th grade content skills that kids are learning right now in your school district. So when it comes to grammar, writing, reading, and math, it goes a little bit to 9th grade when we talk about math, but it sounds easy, but it's kind of like, are you smarter than a 5th grader show? I always make the joke, I stopped watching that years ago because I get mad, right? It's a show, but the premise is that you got a 5th grader, and adults always get the answers wrong because the 5th graders are in that moment learning that stuff. The same philosophy with this exam. A lot of this is brushing the dust off, but having strategies for success to pass exams. So it's not to be taken lightly. A lot of people think general knowledge easy. It's not. You just got to prepare the right way. But it is 39%. That's all 4 on the first attempt.
Now, I will add, so if you had previously tried to take the exam in the last year and a half, 2 years, the prices were much higher, and the way they priced it out was a little bit different. They did do a price reduction in 2019. So it is the overall exam is still $130, but if you do retake or have to take any subtest over again and do a retake for even one subtest, it's $32.50 per subtest versus having to pay the $150 fee regardless of how many subtests you need to take. So I think this is really, really important for people that maybe aren't aware of this or haven't had a chance to look this up, that they understand that the price has changed, the retake fees have changed. So it is a much, much more affordable exam to take now, and more reasonably priced than it was before.
And there are 2 ways you can get exempt for it, right, Lisa?
There are two ways you can get exempt. So that is the number one question. Do I really have to take it? Is there any way I don't have to take it? There is two ways you do not have to take the exam. Now, the first way is if you took the GRE. I believe it's after July 1st of 2015. But if you have taken the GRE in recent years and I don't ever remember the scores, but if you're someone that needs the scores, I can send you the exact link on where to go. I know exactly where to find it. You can get your general knowledge test waived. And it even applies if it's only certain subsections. So maybe you only did well on the math section of the GRE. Well, you can apply that to your math section of the GKT. So it's actually a nice piece of information to know. It's not like an all or nothing kind of thing. So you can get any kind of credit in combination for that as possible.
Yeah, keep in mind, I always want to throw out there, a lot of people say, well, what's the GRE? That's an exam to get into grad school.
Yep.
So it is a different type of exam. This is straight content. That's more of an aptitude test, kind of like SAT. So it sounds, a lot of people try to do it, but they're not successful with it. So you can try it. A lot of people who are overseas now, probably not anyone attending this, or maybe watching the recording later on, but a lot of online programs we work with that have students overseas are going that route only because they can take it in a base or a testing center overseas where you can't take the FTCEs. So just want to throw that out there with the GRE.
Yep. And then it comes to the second, number two. So what is the other way? So I meet a lot of teachers with their masters and their PhDs. So a lot of them, I always try to make sure and be mindful to ask them if they have any college teaching experience, because usually having a master's degree is the minimum requirement to be able to teach in college. Now, your college teaching experience, the great part with that is that not only does it waive having to take the general knowledge test, it also waives all your education courses. So if you are a college teacher and it has to be, you've been teaching a year full time, and it's okay if it's not a year full time exactly, if it's part time, but it equals a year full time. That can also account. So I do meet a lot of adjunct professors that they taught a little bit here, a little bit there over the course of several years. If all of that experience equals 1 year full time, you can submit your information to be evaluated, so that way you can get your general knowledge test and your education courses waived. So that's also a nice route, and I highly encourage anyone to do that. And then the last exam is going to be your professional education test. So this is what I call it's your pedagogy exam. So all those education courses you took, the tons of training, the PD you're going to do your first year as a teacher, first couple years as a teacher. This is what this exam is going to be about. And so I usually find that this is the easiest exam to take for teachers. It's usually taken the last. I'm pretty sure everyone takes this last. I do have a lot of people that are just like, I can knock it out and take it while I'm doing everything else. Go for it. So that's another thing worth mentioning. You don't have to take the exams in a specific order, and you can take them at any time. So even if you haven't graduated with your bachelor's degree yet, and you're about to, you can take the exam. If you want to take subject area, general knowledge, professional education test, you can take them, all within a couple months or year or back to back. I mean, that's up to you and what you can handle. But you definitely need to have all three exams done by the end of the 3 years on your temporary certificate.
Yep, because the GK, it used to be the first year of employment you had to pass it, but they switched it last year. So you have to pass the GK by the end of year 3. I highly advise you to do it as soon as possible, because it only makes it harder on yourself. Trust me, I've seen people lose their jobs because they didn't pass all the subtests and they waited till year 3. And previously year 1, because they just changed it recently. But a lot of teachers now that just got hired last school year or this school year, like, oh, I'll wait. They'll get it over with. The professional ed, you can wait a little bit because you're going to learn stuff in your courses, things along those lines, but you can knock that out early as well. But definitely GK, that's the biggest killer for teachers, losing their jobs because they don't pass it. So you got to get it done, be proactive.
Yep. So we have your education courses. We talked about your state exams, and then we talked about the teaching component of completing your requirements. So the right column shows you kind of how it's going to be summarized in your statement of eligibility. This is the very simplified version of it. Your statement of eligibility is usually 2 or 3 pages. It's a lot more descriptive than that, but it's in general, this telling you that you're going to have to complete these requirements. So the other question is, okay, so now I get what I have to do, but how do I have to do it? So as I mentioned before, a lot of people don't realize that there's 11 different routes to get certified. A lot of people think that, oh, I have to go to college, I have to go back to, school, or maybe I could do alt cert. There's a lot of different options when you have to complete it. Now, I summarize it as you do complete college courses. This might be you're getting your degree in elementary education, you're utilizing one of the specialized programs to become a teacher, or you're doing what they call the a la carte method. If you're that non-education major, you're just selecting courses at a college to meet those requirements in order to earn your professional certificate. Another route, which is what I'm very familiar with, is the alternative certification route. So if you are a non-education major, what a lot of people tend to do is they do the EPI or county program, professional development certification program. And so when they do select either one of those programs, those will meet all your requirements for certification. So you would complete the program and then pass your 3 state exams, and then you will be fully certified. So that'll complete all the requirements that I listed in the previous slide. Now, with the alternative certification route, when we talk about county programs, not every county has a program. I think it's about 40–50% of counties do have a program, but a lot of them don't. Just keep in mind, you need to check in with your school district to see if that's an available option for you.
Most of it. I would think it's safe, Lisa, I think it's safe to say that most of the larger populated school districts have some sort of program.
Yes.
Yeah, so a lot of, like, we work with a lot of school districts, and some of them have ones that are free. Some of them have ones that have a cost to it. But these are all the face-to-face, obviously, things they're doing online because of COVID, but obviously it'll go back eventually. But they're also, like Lisa mentioned too, and Lisa mentioned in the beginning, she worked for an online certification program. There's a program called Teachers of Tomorrow, where you can go into that program and complete everything online at your own pace between a year or two. And they charge you a fee, but you pay that after you get your job and they help place you. So if you're not teaching right now, or if you are teaching right now, you can do a program like that and knock it out and do it online at home at your own pace and get the support that you need. So just depends on where you're at, what school district you're at, what works best for your situation. But online, everybody's online now. It's a quick, easy way to get it done.
Oh yeah, and it helps that it's flexible, and in particular with my old program that I used to work with, it's just nice that you don't actually have to invest such an upfront cost, that you get to get all of that deferred and don't have to pay until you're actually hired and working as a teacher. So that's what makes that option nice. Now, when it comes to deciding how you're going to complete the requirements, and I'll talk about the other two just momentarily, but when you're completing the requirements, I feel like 3 things really come into play. It's going to be cost. Obviously, cost is number 1 for everyone. So you got to consider that. You have to consider the flexibility and how that's delivered. So Dr. A was mentioning how Teachers of Tomorrow is fully online. So it's fully online, fully self-paced. You don't have to show up for a class. There's no deadlines for assignments or projects or anything like that. So does that make sense for you to be able to do that? Or do you have to go face to face, or do you have to go face to face periodically? Do they have Saturday classes? Is that going to work with your schedule? So I think that's also really important to understand, does that fit your lifestyle in that flexibility, and how that's going to work. And then the third thing I think is really important is considering how much time you have. If you're utilizing district programs, sometimes those programs can take anywhere from a year to 2 years. And so when you talk about a 3-year time frame, if you really don't get it from the first year, then you're already going against time and you're going against the clock with that. So just understanding how long that program is, and is that going to fit to meet your needs to get done on time by the time your temporary certificate expires.
Joy, to answer your question, Joy, is that when we're talking about Teachers of Tomorrow, is that what you're talking about, different examples of EPI programs? And then to answer Crystal's question, really, that's an easy one. I can answer that one. General knowledge says no, but the professional ed, your workshops and your pedagogy courses in your program that you're taking, the goal of the objectives is they do cover the content. So it just depends on what program you're in. I've heard mixed reviews. I've had people that come to me for help because we provide professional ed test prep that are in programs at school districts, and like Dr. A, like half the stuff that they teach us is not anything to do with the pro ed. Some are really good. So it just depends on the program. But the goal is that they do cover that content, but the GK, no, because that's skills between 4th and 8th grade, 4th grade through 8th grade, middle school skills. And then you could tackle those other questions, Lisa, I see there.
Oh yeah, so I'm just gonna go in order. So Joy asked, can you give example of an EPI? So we talked about for Florida Teachers of Tomorrow. A lot of the universities have their own EPI. So you'll find Florida Teachers of Tomorrow is their own independent, and then the other ones, the university will have their own EPI program within the college. So whether it's University of West Florida doing Teacher Ready, whether it's I'm drawing blanks, Valencia College. I don't know why I'm drawing blanks on Florida colleges right now, but you get the idea. Usually in every area, the local college will have their own EPI program.
And if you go to the Florida Department of Education website, the FLDOE, if you just search in the search box, EPI programs, they have a full list of all the accredited colleges out there that provide those. So it's really easy to find on the DOE website.
Yeah, and usually, I mean, if it's a larger university in your area, they probably have one. I usually find all the main universities that do have one.
Gail has a good question. She's already enrolled in an EPI. She's only one class in. Would she be able to switch to an alternative certification route?
So an EPI is considered the alternative certification route. When we say alternative certification, it just means you're not going back to college to complete your education course requirements. If you did want to switch, I would keep in mind that you can't switch over your EPI courses. So I know you said you're one class in, that course, from my understanding and everything I've learned about EPIs, it's not transferable. So you would have to start over again with whatever program that you decided to go with. But usually if you sign up for a program, most people will stick to that program and just follow that through. But that's just kind of up to you in terms of, why you would need to switch. But just keep in mind that you can't transfer anything that you've completed to another program. And then
Crystal says, do school boards look down on online programs like Teacher Ready, et cetera, or do they prefer more traditional college classes through a state university or a community college?
they just want you to get certified.
Yeah, honestly, the bigger, at least from my experience and from talking to HR directors of schools we work with, the biggest demographics of teachers in schools right now in Florida is the alternate certification route. So as long as it's an accredited program and you're certified, they want you, they need you in the classroom. So I would say that they do not look down upon that.
I say there's little to no consideration about the route you do decide, whether it's alt cert or you decide to sign up for the college classes. I think at the end of the day, it's what's going to make sense to get you to your goals and get you to that professional certified teacher status. They care about that number. They care about that transition. That's the important thing, that they get you to that goal. Yep. So with that, it brings me up to another point. You should always talk to your school district to see if they have any existing relationships or any discounts or deals with any or they're partnering with any programs to see if you can benefit from that, as long as you're an employee of that school district.
Yep, we need teachers. Every school district needs teachers. So as quick as you can get through the process, the better. Also, I think we might have, let me check the Q&A real fast since we're answering those. Joy says teachers of tomorrow will cover education. Yes, yeah, Joy, they cover everything. They cover that pedagogy, that coursework you do. They get you ready for those exams as well.
Yep, the EPI program will cover all your education courses. I mentioned that teaching component. So you actually do the teaching component with Florida teachers. They ask that you teach for a year on your temporary certificate, and that will meet that requirement. They actually, I do know they have a 6-month accelerated track if you are shorter on time to complete that. But we usually try to encourage, for people to do the full 1 year. Or if you decide on another EPI, they do have that teaching component to complete that part that's listed on your statement of eligibility. But when you complete an EPI and you pass your 3 state exams, you are fully certified and ready to go.
All right. I'm going to move on to the next one, or do we cover everything on here?
Oh, I didn't cover everything on here. So the other thing, well, we talked about reciprocity earlier. I think you had asked about that. And then the other one is college teaching experience, which I had brought up earlier when it comes to waiving your GRE. That also waives all your education course requirements. And then the only other one I haven't talked about that I don't feel applies to a whole lot of people, or at least I haven't encountered it. You can get a professional teaching certificate with your master's degree, but you have to be teaching very specific STEM related classes. And then you have to earn, I believe it's a highly effective rating when you're teaching those classes. So that does create the possibility. So if you're teaching science or math or engineering, then you would have that opportunity to go that route.
All right, cool. So quick recap so far. Everybody in the box, if you're watching in our Zoom room, if you're watching on YouTube, you're watching the recording also, share one thing you've learned so far from Lisa. I know you learned a lot from Lisa. I'm going to give you guys 1 minute right now. Everybody, whether you're watching live or the recording, put one big thing that you learned from Lisa so far. Go. I want to see a bunch of responses. You guys got a minute to do that. And don't worry about typos. Let's see. Let's a little comprehension check here. Let's see what you guys learned so far. 11 routes of certification, $75 per certificate subject area. 2 dates to be mindful for the temporary and the statement of eligibility. College classes. Take some time to get my statement of eligibility. You don't need to take courses at brick and mortar. Very true. And plus, they're a lot more expensive. You know, you're talking, depending if you're in state or out state, maybe you just moved to the state of Florida, you can't qualify for that, but you're talking a couple of grand per class. Sitting out for a year. That's a big one, Roderick. Roderick, statement of eligibility is not the same as temporary. A lot of people think it's the same thing. I get that question all the time too. A lot of people think it's the same thing. You can get your professional certificate by taking your exams and courses in any order. You got to finish them all by the end of year 3. All right, good job. I see a lot of people learned a lot of stuff here, Lisa. Awesome. Let's see if we tackled all the questions here. Yep, we got those. Well, we missed out. And if I mispronounce this, I do apologize. Maite, if I said it wrong, I do apologize ahead of time. Does the year of teaching need to be aligned with the temporary certificate? I'm an out-of-field dual language elementary school teacher, but my temporary certificate is in world languages, Spanish.
Ideally, when they're doing your year of teaching, it would be as an in-field teacher. At some point, since you're out of field, you would have to add that certificate for elementary education. And that at which point, when you do add it, then they can submit your teaching experience for elementary education. So essentially, once you complete that out of field requirement, you would be in compliance and they could count that year of teaching. So it kind of, yes and no.
And also, we're gonna provide our emails at the end, especially Lisa's too. So I know a lot of people are asking that in the Q&A as well. So we're gonna give you our email at the end. All right, so let's talk a little bit numbers here. Let's make it real. There's a lot of people that we help prepare these exams. Oh, hold on, I think someone's got their mic on, getting some feedback. A lot of people don't know what they're walking into when it comes to.
I think we lost exams. Dr. A. I can't. Oh, we couldn't hear you, or at least I couldn't hear you. It sounded like you were having glitch.
Hold on, can you hear me now? I feel like a Verizon commercial.
Well, I can hear you now, and it's now Sprint commercial.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
You made the switch.
Let's talk some numbers here because we got to make this real. So a lot of people think tests and like, oh, I'm good at taking tests. I was 4.0 in college. This is totally different. So these are numbers from the professional, from the DOE. So I mentioned before, general knowledge test, like Lisa said, that's the test that everybody has to pass unless you have 1 year teaching college of experience or you have a certain score on your GRE. So college students have to pass this to get in their education program, alternative certification. Everybody else in the classroom has until year 3 to pass that or else you lose your job. 39% pass on the first attempt. That is according to DOE. We provide that prep. I'll talk about that at the end. Our pass rates are 90% above. So we're here to support you. Same thing with K through 6. Elementary ed, that's the second biggest exam because just grade, it's just numbers, K through 6. 59% first attempt pass rate. It's on average 5,000 teachers a year. That's what those numbers are on the right. Professional ed, actually, it is a little less than that. I believe it's 77%. About 9,000 teachers take that a year. So these are according to DOE. So a lot of people don't know this rolling in. It's all about preparing the right way. So since prep for these exams is of the utmost importance, we want to make sure we're here to help you. Lisa's here to help you with the certification questions, anything that you have. We're here to help you prepare so you only have to take the exam one time. So for people who spend time out of their busy week, especially now with online learning, maybe you're doing a combination of both, or if you're a college student doing things online, we know time is stressful. We know money is stressful. We know you have a lot of things on their plate. So anytime we do webinars like this, we offer a special. So if you're new to Learning Liaisons, you could check our reviews on Facebook. You could check our reviews on Google. You don't have to take our words for it. We're one of the leaders in test prep in Florida. And now we're doing stuff across the nation for Praxis. With that being said, we provide on-demand online video courses to help you, teach you how to study, prepare you for the content, and more importantly, give you test-taking strategies, because these exams are 80% mental and 20% content. So I'm not going to say that content's unimportant. Of course it is. But knowing how to take these exams and having strategies is what ultimately helps people pass this on the first attempt. We got your back. So every time we do a webinar, we offer a special for people who attend. This is going to last for 3 days. If you have questions, check it out on the website. But I gave you guys a coupon code that's going to be good. What are we? Today is what? Thursday. So tonight, tomorrow, and Saturday should be good till Sunday. That coupon code will save you 50% off our courses. Our courses range from 50 to 100 bucks. We have bundles that are, $150, $300 that give you everything together. But if you have any questions, let us know. We've got all the exam prep that you need that's on the right-hand side. Feely is a leadership exam. You guys don't have to know about that. I just threw that on there. But if you have any questions about anything before you sign up, shoot me an email. Lisa's email's on there as well. So if you have questions about certification, you can put them in the comments on the video on YouTube. You can email Lisa. A couple of you guys were putting in the Q&A for her email address. It's lisa@thelearningliaisons.com, and she will answer any questions that you have about certification. Maybe you need help reading your statement of eligibility. She's there to help you as well. And on our YouTube channel, we have about 2 or 3 other videos like this with Lisa, where she really goes into more specific examples with teachers. And go watch those, because a lot of those are very popular, meaning the examples that teachers are in. You're not alone. You're just like everybody else across the state of Florida that needs to get this done. And you all have unique situations, but a lot of them are very common. And you can learn a lot by watching those videos on our YouTube channel. So does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns for the good of the order, while we make sure we addressed everybody's questions here? Our goal here was to give you guys a very quick overview of the process. It's very
someone raised their hand.
But it could be confusing if you don't know what you're doing. What was that, Lisa? Sorry.
Oh, I said someone raised their hand.
Oh.
I don't know if that means they have a question or they're good.
Yeah, you can turn your microphone. I gave everybody microphone rights, or you can.
Oh, that was me. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine.
You have a question?
Okay. Yes, I do. So I'm actually on track on studying for the elementary K through 6. I've already passed the general knowledge.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I do have an undergrad in history, but I do want to teach elementary. So my question to you is like, okay, I understand the time frame as to when I apply and I get the statement of eligibility, but what's the time frame between the statement of eligibility and then getting the temporary certificate?
So the time, like, are you hired and working as a teacher already, or not yet?
No, I work as a paraprofessional in Miami-Dade County Public Schools.
Okay, so the time frame really depends on when you get hired. So I can't answer that like as a specific number, because I've had people have their statement of eligibility for a month or up to the 2.5, 3 year period that it's valid for. So it's just keeping in mind that it's once you get hired, and then usually it takes about anywhere from 30 to 60 days from when you're hired. Might be a little bit longer, just kind of depends on your district's process and for onboarding new employees to get that temporary certificate. But if you're hired, I would just go immediately with the mind frame that your temporary certificate is starting the past July. So if you get hired in October, your certificate starts July 1st of 2020.
Okay, and just one more question. Let's say I don't want to get the temporary certificate. I want to go for the professional ed. So will the process be a little bit more different than if I were to go for the temporary certificate?
No, so the only difference is kind of the route you go. And so that actually brings up a great point. It is possible to go directly to the professional certificate. You would just go complete the classes and everything else. Now in your situation, it depends on the program, sorry. So if you decide there are EPIs and alt-cert programs that do make it possible for you directly to go to your professional certificate, but do keep in mind that one of the requirements for the professional certificate is you do have to teach for a year on your temporary certificate. So if you did just kind of want to go ahead and take your college courses, complete your exams, and then go sign up to be a teacher, then you would complete your year of teaching on your temporary certificate and then go upgrade to your professional certificate at that time. Or you can absolutely look into an EPI program that would offer you the direct to professional route where you can just complete their program, pass your exams, and then you would come out with a professional certificate at the end. That's a great question.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Crystal's got a question. She's a career changer. Should we get the statement of eligibility and then try to get hired as a teacher first? Or do they require we have our certification first? This is for the people with no teaching experience.
So this this is always the hardest question to answer because it honestly depends on your school district. And I say that because
they're all not the same. Did you just insinuate that all school districts don't do things? How dare you?
It's been 4 years. I've been trying to memorize. I was like, okay, there's a system. It depends. It depends. It's what area, what district. So you may be in a school district where they're very strict and you have to be certified or eligible to teach with that eligible statement of eligibility in order to be hired. Or you could be in other school districts, which are a little bit more flexible, and they'll work with you to get hired first. And then as you're working through your certification and your state requirements, you could still be hired as a teacher. So you just kind of have to check in with your school district, check in with their recruiters, if you know what the options are, because that part does vary. As you heard, there's people that teach out of field. So what that means is usually that they're what I call it, it's cert eligible. So they are eligible for a certificate based off of their degree, but they haven't met the requirements or passed the subject area exam for another area. So say you're someone, I'm going to use Christine as an example, where she is a history major and she's doing elementary ed. So you could be hired with your history degree because you'd be eligible for social science, but then you would teach out of field in elementary education. But I usually find that they still require that you need to apply and get your statement of eligibility for the subject area that you are eligible in. So that way you can get your certificate issued the fastest. Now, if you're someone just starting out and maybe you're in I usually find business majors. As much as I am a business major, I love business majors. The reality is there's not a lot of job opportunities or teaching positions for that. So you may just want to go ahead and take the initiative to take that subject area exam for the areas you're interested, whether that's elementary ed, mathematics, science, or physical education, whatever it may be. You may just kind of want to keep that in mind that may limit you in terms of job opportunity in order to be able to get hired. So it really just depends on the district, and I just really encourage, I always just encourage people to go ahead and apply and at least get your state documentation going, because at least you have something to go in with versus just starting from scratch.
Yeah, and would you think, Lisa, that's safe to say that if you have exams passed walking in the door to try to get a job. It makes you a lot more marketable than having to get you a job and then go and pass your exams.
Absolutely. And so the idea is you want to be eligible to teach in the area that you are trying to teach in and you're applying for. And so if they can see that you're eligible and that you've already passed a subject area exam and you've already made that investment and have done your due diligence, that's going to make you much more marketable than someone that has not gone through as much effort, not at least initially, in order to be able to get into that position. Not to say it doesn't happen. I see everything happen every which way possible. But I usually just encourage people do focus on getting that eligible statement of eligibility.
All right. Lots of good. You guys got some awesome questions going here tonight.
Does
anybody else have any questions before we wrap it up? We gave you oh, Joyce just popped a question in the Q&A. Does substitute teaching count as teaching experience for certification and/or in an EPI program?
It does not. So the teaching experience does need to be, well, according to your statement of eligibility, it needs to be 1 year teaching at a secondary school, which means you need to be on a temporary certificate. Now, if you decide to utilize an EPI, there are EPIs that have you conduct observations and different things to meet that requirement, then of course that would be a little bit different in that case.
Awesome. See, I told you she knows the answers to all the questions.
Oh, I think so. I try.
All right, we'll give you guys another minute or so here. Does anyone have any other questions? You guys are rocking off some great questions here. So like I said before, on the screen, I've got my email, Lisa's email. If you have certification questions, if you have questions about our courses and how we can help you here at the Learning Liaisons, shoot me an email, certification questions, shoot Lisa email. We understand the journey. Lisa knows everything about it. I've been through it. Our teachers here at the Learning Liaisons have been through it. We know the frustrations, we know the anxiety. We're here to make sure we're on your side and help you through this struggling journey to make sure you got what you need and you're done and you don't wind up losing your job and get frustrated and questioning what you're doing with your life. We want you in the classroom. That's what's most important because we need great teachers.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I had completed like all the courses that it said that I had to complete for my certification, but I reapplied for, like, I was a year off and I reapplied for my certificate. And I see now, I don't know if this is something new or maybe you could tell me, it's showing that there's a course requirement for instructional strategies, teaching students of limited English proficiency. Is that something new? So like, is that like an ESOL course, ELL course?
It is an ESOL course. So I do know they made updates to the education requirements. And so that's when your certification, your statement of eligibility, that time frame becomes important. I like to say that's kind of like a binding agreement with you and the state to let you know, hey, if you complete what we say on here, we'll be able to issue your professional certificate. Now, if they decide to add requirements within that time frame and you reapply, those new requirements are now going to be on your statement of eligibility. Now, if they decide to waive certain requirements, for example, some people may still have a general statement of eligibility that says they need to complete it within the first year. Well, they, even though it says it on there, they'll waive that and honor that you have the full 3 years to take it. So it is possible that that you have an updated one with the ESOL class included on it.
Okay. And is that a course I will have to take like at a college level, or is that a course I could take like at, like, you know how they have like district classes sometimes?
They do have the district classes. Usually the district classes are endorsement classes or they're professional development classes that count towards your renewal or your endorsement. So it would have to be at a college or a university.
Okay. All right. And then that practical experience in teaching, that just means the 1 year that you get hired and you teach during that year, the first year, right?
Yep. That's
okay.
just for a year.
Okay, does it matter if it won't count if I had already been a teacher under my other temporary certificate? I mean, right now I just have a letter of, what is it called? Eligibility?
Yes.
But before, when I had the temporary, I actually was teaching, 3 years. And I mean, I have a bunch of years of teaching experience without a certificate, but when I had the temporary, I was teaching for 3 years under it.
It's possible. If it's still listed on your statement of eligibility, it means that they didn't receive the form that states that. But if you're already on a new temporary certificate, you can just work with your new school district to make sure that form gets submitted. Or if you need to, you can contact the previous school district, or if it's the same one, to get that added onto your certificate.
Okay. And then this question is for Dr. A. Dr. A, do you have a course for the social sciences subject area?
Fortunately, no, but we're working towards it. We don't have something content specific. If you're in any of our other courses, the strategies and things that we teach are applicable to that exam too. We have a course on our website that I made. It's called First Attempt Success. It's the general how to study strategies that go through a bunch of questions from different exams. But the key on that exam is the same thing. It's all about being able to analyze the questions, having effective strategies that'll help you be successful. But when it comes to content review, sites like IXL.com, which if you have a school email, you could sign up for free for the first 30 days. Those are great sites to work on the content because all the content's listed on the Pearson website, that site you sign up for the exam. A lot of people don't realize they have a list of all the skills and blueprint. They call it the test blueprint, but they have all the social studies content, and you can use sites like IXL to target your review. Brain Pop is another great website. These are sites that kids go to because it's the content between 6 through 12 that you can go on there and review. So part of it is the content review, but a big part, the biggest part is the strategy, how to be able to analyze the question. So you want to go to, if you go to our website and click on FTCE and go to the subject area exam, you'll see on that page, it says First Attempt Success. So that's the basic strategy course. Thank you, Lisa.
No problem. Sorry, guys. I got to run. Got to go get little man. You guys have a great night.
Thank you, Lisa. So we put Lisa's email in the comments. We had it on the screen before. So she's awesome. You have questions about certification, use that. If you're in our Facebook group, we have a free Facebook group called When You Pass. Lisa's in there too. You can tag her with certification questions. She'll jump on and ask you questions in there as well.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions, comments, concerns before we wrap it up? Sounds like you guys got a lot of value out of this. You got a lot of your questions answered. Remember, we're here to help you. So if you think of anything later on, you want to ask us, you've got our contact information. Let us know. We're here to help you. We'll do whatever we can to make sure you complete the certification process and also pass your exams. So you guys have a great rest of your day. We're always here to help you, and we'll catch you on the next webinar.
Thanks, Dr. A. Have a good night.
No problem. You have a good night too.
Bye.